Hi, the Nifty has hit a fresh all-time high, and the question on everyone's mind at this point is: should they buy into their investments and wait for a further rally to happen, or should they sell off their investments and liquidate their positions to make some free cash that they can utilize once the market falls? Now, with this thought, yesterday I had a look at this video by Akshat Srivastav, in which he takes a contra bet, where he basically accumulates stocks when something like this happens. So he's basically waiting for opportunities when the market is sideways or it is falling, and at that point is when he is basically accumulating stocks in the market. Now, by accumulating stocks during a fall, he's able to make a good average price, and thus when the bounce back happens, he's at a good position to be able to make a significant return once the recovery happens. So with that thought process, I thought of building a strategy that basically takes advantage of falling markets in basically cash stocks. So let's have a look at this strategy first. Try to understand what logic it follows, and then you can duplicate this template, make modifications in the numbers that are shared out here, and run it on your own accounts with your own instruments of your choice. Now, let's first understand what strategy has do I plan to build. Now, the strategy out here is that once I begin my algo execution, my algo should basically take an entry into the stocks that I have put in my custom list. So I've basically made a list of a few different stocks. So I have added 20 different stocks into this list. Now these stocks are stocks that I have thought about, and these are mainly the Nifty components. So you can modify this list or make your own custom list based on the stocks that you like. Now once I activate my algo, these 20 stocks will basically take a trade at that point itself. So immediately upon execution, a trade will be executed in only these 20 stocks. Now, after I have taken an entry into all these 20 stocks, I am basically going to wait for a fall in these particular stocks. So let's say if I bought a stock, let's say X at a particular value. Now, after it falls by let's say 1%. So I'm basically looking for a fall of 1%. After my 1% fall happens, I'm going to be accumulating another quantity of the same stock. Now, once my 1% fall happens from this point, let's say if it falls another 1%, in this case, I'm again going to be accumulating another quantity in this stock. Now, what this does is that when I continue doing this, I basically am able to make a good average price. So let's assume if at 100 rupees I bought let's say one stock, and then it falls to 90, and I'm buying the same stock again, and then when it falls to 80, I'm buying the same stock again. My average price is going to be constantly reduced because I am constantly averaging down my positions. And generally what happens is that once you have a good average price and the stock market regime changes and the price start to go up, that is when you see a good amount of return on the original investment that you made. So with this thesis, let's see how to build a strategy where the first rule is that it should immediately take an entry. The second rule is that at every 1% fall, it should continue to accumulate more of that particular stock, somewhat like an SIP, but a strategic SIP. And the third rule is that when let's say there is a return of let's say 3%, in that case, from 3% of the average price. So whatever was my average price, uska 3% whenever I get, I will basically be exiting from my position. Now, of course, this 1 and 3% are just numbers. You can change it based on what you feel like works best for you. Um, so let's see how to build this kind of a strategy on Tradetron. And of course, you can just duplicate the template that I've shared in the description, and you can use this same strategy directly in your account. So the list that I've selected is a custom list that I have made for myself called the India list. Now the India list has different stocks like HDFC Bank, Tata Motors, ITC, Britannia, and Infi, and so on. Now in my entry conditions, I basically have two groups. My first group is to immediately take my entry. So what you see out here with the position detail and the time condition is basically to immediately take an entry after 9:20 in the morning. So the first time that I execute it, my position detail will be 0 for that particular list, and after 9:20 it will basically take a trade in all the stocks that I had predefined in my strategy. Now the second thing that I need to happen is that, let's say after my stop loss or target has been achieved, let's say I get my 3% in my trade in let's say HDFC Bank. After that, I want my strategy to take a break for, let's say, 5 minutes, and after this 5 minute break, I basically want my execution to begin again. It should again buy the HDFC Bank. Whenever it falls by, let's say, 1%, it will take another trade in it and keep going until my 3% target happens. So the second condition that I have basically takes care of my second entry. So you can see I'm selecting position detail is not equal to 0 to make sure that I'm looking at my second entry and so on. I also am looking at another variable called exit time, which we will understand in some time. And I'm checking for my time condition. So let's say after my exit, if let's say 5 minutes have passed, I'm checking for these time conditions using the same using my time variable out here and out here. Um, Now, whenever my signal happens, so as soon as 9:20 happens, I want to buy a trade for a particular value. Now, you can select any value based on your thought process for your SIP, but I have selected 25,000 because that is a number that fits well with all the stocks, the different stocks that I have added. If you think that 25,000 is too much, you can change it to something like let's say one quantity. So in that case, it will take a trade only in one stock quantity for that particular stock. For now, I'll leave it at value and let it be. Now, after my entry, I basically want to generate some runtime variables. Now, these runtime variables that I have generated are basically the instrument name. So I am first saving the instrument name that I wanted that I have traded in my entry. So I'm saving the instrument name. Why am I taking saving this instrument name is something that you will get to know soon. I'm also saving the average price at which my instrument took an entry. So because it is the first trade, I am just saving the price at which my entry happened. So let's say ITC took an entry at, let's say, 200. So I'm just saving this number 200 out here using my traded instrument keyword. Once that happens, I'm also saving a variable name as exit time as 0 because I want to purge this variable. Why is something that you will get to know soon. Now, after doing this, by this part, we have basically built our entry logic. So it takes an entry and it takes a re-entry based on this logic. Now, after every 1% fall, I want to accumulate more 25,000 worth quantity every time. So for this, I have my repair continuous setup. Now, my repair continuous has a nuance out here. Now, the nuance is that I basically need to check the LTP of the instrument that I traded, which is why with LTP, I'm using get runtime, and within get runtime, I am basically selecting the instrument that I had traded in my list. So I'm getting the instrument name for using my get runtime, and then my second get runtime out here is basically getting its average price. So like I gave you in the example, first entry at 100, second at 90, third at 80. So the average price is basically what I want and not the last price at which the entry happened. To fetch the average price, I've used a variable called average price with the list name. And using this list name, I'm basically able to get, let's say, the HDFC Bank underscore average underscore price as the value for my variable. And now I have my number out here. Now this number basically denotes my 1% fall. So 0.99 is basically a fall of 1% from the entry price. Now let's say if I don't want a fall of 1%, I want a fall of 10%. So I will basically make this 0.90. Or let's say if I want a fall of, let's say, 2%, so I'll make it 0.98. So that is where you can play around with these numbers. These numbers will be editable at your end. So change it and use whatever number you think works best for you. And I'll keep it at 0.99, which is 1% of the entry price. Now, after taking my entry, I will want to again trigger a re-entry using my position builder whenever my repair continuous logic happens, which I've done pretty much the same way. And out here now I'm doing something tricky. This runtime variable is basically making an average price. Now, like I gave the example previously, I want an average price and not the last traded price. For my average price, I'm using this particular math operation logic. Now, this particular math operation is basically taking a math operation within a math operation, and it is dividing it by number 2. So, the average that I'm getting will basically be the last average plus the current last trade divided by 2. So, let's say if the last trade happened at 90 and the average price of entry is 100. So, 100 plus 90 divided by 2 will basically give my new average. So this is how I am continuously making updating my average price. Now, within my average price, the previous last entry price, which is my 100 value, is basically coming from this particular variable. And my latest entry, the entry that took place in my repair continuous, is basically coming in from my traded instrument keyword, where I'm fetching the price of the repair continuous set 1, condition 1, leg number 1, in order to take my trade. Now, if this sounds too complicated, just ignore it and just duplicate the strategy, and you can modify it just using the numbers that I have shared. Um, Finally, my set exit. So the set exit is basically a simple condition to check for a 3% target. I'm doing the exact same thing that I did in repair continuous. LTP is greater than get runtime uh, times number 1.03. Now 1.03 is basically my 3% target that I have generated. Again, this number is customizable for you. You can change it to something like, let's say 15% or let's say 25% and so on. So with that, let's go to the universal exit conditions. Now out here in my universal exit condition, I've kept this blank because I want the strategy, since it is an equity buying strategy, I want the strategy to continuously take trades every day, without any intervention from me. So this is like a strategic SIP that I'm doing, which is why my universal condition exit condition is blank. Um, Now I have my advanced settings. Since I'm never exiting, I've selected reactivate as never, and I'm checking my conditions continuously. And I can then also add my required capital. So let's say an entry, if you're taking 25,000 as the entry capital, entry first trade, you can always change the capital to, let's say, 5 lakh or something like that, based on your understanding of what you would want to trade and the instruments that you have added in your strategy. Um, Now you can also do this exact same thing on something like Nifty Bees, where you are basically running the same strategy for Nifty Bees and continuously averaging in on your price. If you have any other questions or ideas that you want us to cover in future strategies, feel free to drop it in the comments below, and we would be happy to take it up in future videos. Thank you very much. Goodbye.